It's good to see you back again. I hope that we don't disappoint you. We'll try not to. I'm Bill Gordon, and I'm the owner of Psalm 1. And what today is about, really, we do church sound systems and pro audio systems. But it doesn't do any good if people can't run them. And what's happening nowadays is prices are, for a long time, coming down to we get a lot more sophisticated equipment for your money. The problem is it's a little bit more complicated. It takes a little bit more expertise to run, which you being sound people are fully aware of. I don't know if Mike's around, but I really want to thank Whitney Avenue for letting us host it here. This is, they just recently did a remodel, and this is one of the sound systems. Right now you're just hearing me through ours, and the reason this one's set up, normally their stage looks really nice and pristine, no cables, they have all the nice floor boxes with short little cables, and we came in and mucked it all up. But I've got this system set up today because what we're going to do is actually in the basic intermediate class, as we go through some things, we're going to go back to the board and actually do a little bit of hands-on and show you some stuff. So it's just easier to have the board down here than all of us to climb up the balcony. Besides that, you're going to hear things more realistically downstairs. Anybody have sound booths up in a balcony? Okay. You moved it down. All right. That's good. Anybody have sound booths in another room? Praise the Lord. We have a couple churches where the poor sound man works through a glass window and does this, wears headphones. And there's a couple churches that want to do that with the sound person. So number one rule for some people today is bathe so they don't put you in a room. And, what we're going to do is for the next 30 minutes, just go ahead and take a look around at the equipment. We're going to have a little bit of praise and worship here in a little while. We'll use Whitten's sound system. One of the things that we're going to be featuring, one of the number one complaints that I get from churches as they move to contemporary music is the drums. The drums are too loud, they sound terrible or whatever, and there's lots of different solutions, and I'm just going to show you one. We're going to talk about the different solutions. This is my own set here, and we, a couple years ago, were looking for solutions for drums. One option was to go to digital drums, but they don't sound quite right, and the drummer settings don't feel right. Some drummers don't mind, and they're about $2,500 to put in a set. Most churches already own a set, usually a real cheap set that haven't had heads changed in about 3 years. They got a regular shack mic stuck on a pillow, and they kick drum, and it just sounds terribly obnoxious. Other churches have spent money and got a really nice drum set, so this may not be a solution if you spent $1,500 on a drum set. But if you come and take a look at the set, if you notice, it doesn't make much sound. That's all it does. And underneath the head, actually, what's muting the sound is a set of triggers that send a signal to an electronic brain, and then that plugs in the sound system. So our sound person now has total control of the drummer. Scary thought. And we just figured out how to get a hold of the lead guitar player, basically. But it's real nice because now your stage volumes are way down, and the sound is now mixed into the sound. You'll get to hear the sound. It's just one solution. The cost for doing that's about $750. So if you already have a cheap drum set, it's not hard to bring it up to a really nice drum set. There's about 500 sounds on the brain. We have 20 different drum sets programmed. We did a Calvary Chapel and their youth. They use a wrap drum set with that big booming bass and a little thin sounding snare. And then during the morning, the church uses a real nice sounding drum set. They got 20 different drum sets. And even if you do a praise song, you go to kind of a Latin sound. You can switch to a drum set that has timbales or trumpets or whatever you want. It's kind of neat. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and versatility. So that's one of the things that we wanted to show you. We just found that a couple of years ago at one of the trade shows. And we're real happy with it. And in our own band, we're using that as well. So, yeah, we're going to put the music on, and probably in about 10 minutes or so, we're going to be doing some demos. In my rack, I have an FBX 900, which is a feedback exterminator. I have it on the main system. What I plan to do is bring a single channel FBX to demonstrate to you. You were here last year or so when we did, where we cranked it up and stuck the mic right in the face of the monitor and shut down the feedback. I forgot that was on loan to a church that's having real problems, and I forgot to get back. So we will try and demo it with the full feedback exterminator to show you the difference that it does make with it bypass versus with it on, because it does make a big difference. The difference between the little box, if you have a lavalier or a particular mic that's causing feedback, is designed specifically for that mic, and it doesn't affect the whole sound. This one that's in my rack is really for the whole sound system. It doesn't deal with the monitors, but the main speakers. If I get any feedback off any microphone or anything, and it detects it in the mains, it will eliminate it. How the feedback exterminator works basically is everybody here familiar with a graphic EQ? Anybody not familiar with what a graphic EQ is? Okay, not. A graphic EQ, as we hear sounds, there's also a series of different frequencies. And the graphic EQ has certain frequencies that you can either boost that frequency or drop it in volume. And so if you have a particular frequency that's feeding back, you can bring just that frequency down. The problem is with a graphic EQ, when you bring that frequency, it's like a bell curve. It brings a lot of adjacent frequencies up or down. Well, it takes a pretty good chunk out of the sound because it's only divided into so many pieces across this huge spectrum. What the FBX does is got a computer in it that locks onto the frequency where that distortion is, or where the feedback is starting. It finds it very quickly before you or I could ever get to something and tweak it. It takes a very thin slice, finds just that frequency and brings it down. So what happens is the frequency is knocked down, but you don't hear the sound colorized. You don't hear this loss of sound. And the small ones will do up to 6 frequencies, and the big one, I think, does 10 frequencies. So just when we demonstrate, that's how it works. And you'll see little lights light up as it's locking on the frequencies that are starting to feedback. And sometimes you even see a light come on, you'll even hear the feedback. You'll catch it before you and I can hear it. Pick up the harmonics. So, anyhow, look around, feel free to ask me questions. Let's see, where's Tom at? Tom, are you here? We have, usually trying to have product reps, Lashur and Mackie and Crown Rep could not be here. There's another conference that's going on, which I'm getting ready to fly out to this week in North Carolina, and they're already all there setting up. But I do appreciate it. Tom's flying out too, but Tom took the time. He's the JBL rep, also the AFEX rep, and a bunch of other products. But the main products that we are probably sell the most of is AFEX, which makes compressors. They make mic preamps, oral exciters, and all kinds of other signal processing equipment. And JBL, most of you are probably familiar with JBL. And he's here to answer your questions.
Junk but loud.
Huh?
Junk but loud.
Tom, did you hear that?
It's true. It's like Ford fixing a curve.
That's our other instructor.
Sorry.
Brad, why don't you stand up since you introduced yourself? So, Brad's a good friend of mine, and at least he was. Brad's a good friend of mine, and he is going to be teaching the advanced class. How many people we got going to the advanced class that are here? I know that there was several of you signed up for the advanced class, and you guys are in for a real treat. Brad really knows his stuff, and even in our acquaintance time, Brad's taught me a lot, and I probably taught him a thing or two, but he won't admit to that. But you guys are going to Brad's class. You'll have a great time. It's the advanced class. And it's a small class, so you'll probably be able to ask all the questions you want and really get some really in-depth information from him. You know, Brad owns Westland Recording Studios. And Brad is also a great brother in the Lord. And really appreciate him for that. So I'm really thankful that the Lord provided other Christian people to help us to minister the body and Holy through seminars. This seminar is not something that we make money off of. We usually lose money, but it's a chance for you to find out about us and for us to help you with your church's sound. Tom, you're back now, so you stand up. This is our JBL rep, Tom Jacobs. And be sure to see him. It's just not often that you get a chance to meet the manufacturers or the manufacturer's reps. And that's really nice of them to come and do that, answer your questions. So, you go to the store, you get so much expertise. You go to here, you get no, you do get some expertise. But Tom's brought some product too. We should see him and say hi to him. So, Jerry Gillatore, Jerry's here, and he thought he was going to be a workshop, but he's actually here to help me out. Jerry works for Arizona Color Supply, right? A guitar teacher and audio tech, and also Channel 21. I'm from Tucson, Channel 21 as an engineer. And he's, if you have questions, Jerry can also answer a lot of your questions. Jerry's a super friend, and he's gone to a lot of trade shows with me and helps me evaluate the product. All the product that you see that we're going to be promoting and stuff, I carry usually at least 5 major lines in mixers, amplifiers, mics, whatever. But we really try to evaluate the product. The OAP speakers actually is my own equipment as well. I do use those we have a contemporary Christian band, and they were used, OAP was also used with the Promise speakers who were there. Stadium 50,000 men, they had OAP speakers. Great product. Like I said, most of you are familiar with JBL. We don't have any EAW product here, but we actually take the time to evaluate the product and say, is this really a pro product? We're going to be talking about the difference between what we call the MI industry products and your commercial products and what it means to you. So, how the speakers sound? You're just hearing a couple speakers on stands, not really placed properly. Well, one of the things we like about OAP is they're real natural sound, and the clarity is real good. Can you hear okay, Jerry? It's not. But that's one thing that's been real important and is one of the big problems is, in churches in the back being able to put out blasting. Anybody being blasted up front here?
Here you go. Right now, the Eons are on supposed to be OAP.
Oh, good. Okay, the Eons are on. Great. So let's put it back here. They sound great too. So.
These aren't on, are they?
No, they aren't. I didn't. I thought the sound strange, but I'm hearing the sound here. But these are little JBL Eons stacked back here. So they're not even on stands. Can you hear in the back? Okay.
Yes, I don't know how much they rock. We went to NAMM this year and we had a demonstration of the Eons.
Yeah, we had a demonstration of them. So you're going to get to hear a lot of stuff firsthand and hear what it sounds like in your type of environment. So, any questions before I give you guys a break and let you mingle and grab literature? And also, Deb, we got any coffee and bagels left? We don't want to bring the food in here, but over in the kitchen, if you go back to here and out, right, and down the breezeway to the double doors, we got some coffee and fruit and bagels. And if you want to take a break for a minute, help yourself. The restrooms are straight in the back. And we'll go ahead and get going with some demonstrations here. And throughout the day, we're also going to do some demonstrations too. So, any questions before I leave you guys? Okay. Have fun. I'll see you in about 10 minutes.
Singing this morning. Bless my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Okay, there we go. Well, praise God, I want to open with prayer, and then we're going to get on. Since we're running behind schedule, what I'm going to do is at lunchtime we'll demo some stuff, and have some more free time. We're going to take lunch break about 12, and since we're not starting at 11:30, we'll probably take lunch break about quarter after 12:30 when Brad gets finished. What we're going to do is we're going to start out with both classes together. Brad's going to start us out, and so let's come on up, Brad. And I introduced him earlier. What?
You ready? Let's go.
I'm ready. Mr. Audio himself. And then we're going to break for the advanced class later. This is scary. But let's go ahead and open the prayer. We definitely need to pray. Lord, we give you thanks for this time together, Lord, that we're all gathered here as your children in one body in Jesus. Lord, I thank you that everyone's made the time and the funds, Lord, to try and, Lord, to create an atmosphere for their programs on Sunday and on the evenings, Lord, to be a blessing, to reach out and to further your ministry through their pastor and through their own body. Lord, I thank you for their time. I pray that you would increase their learning, Lord, that your Holy Spirit would just enlighten their minds and quicken their minds, Lord, to learn things that we're going to teach today, Lord, to help them to retain the information, Lord. I pray that everything we do and say will be pleasing to you, Lord Jesus, today. Lord, that we glorify you. That's what we're here to do. And Lord, we just give you thanks and praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Was there anybody who has come in since I introduced myself? Everybody knows who I am this morning? All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Brad. And after lunch, those of you that are going to advanced class, Brad will come round you up and we'll split off. We'll keep the basic meeting class here. You want one there?
You got one, that'd be great.
We have the technology.
We're going to put it on. One moment. Okay. Hey, how's everybody doing this morning? Yeah, come on, let's get it up. How's everybody doing this morning? Hey, are we sound people or what? I know I'm a sound man. You know why? Look at this. I was just upstairs running sound for these guys, or helping these guys run sound for these guys in just 5 minutes. Look at this. Hey, the other reason why I'm a sound man is because I got my sound man cap on. Rockies. Yeah, these things are great. You got to have a sound man cap because it does a couple of things. One, it distinguishes you from the rest of the crowd. Okay, everybody knows, hey, this guy is a sound man. The other thing it does is it helps you when you're trying to listen to sound. It brings all that sound right down through this building, down right into your ears. Great, you got to have one of these. What you got to not have is this stuff. This is what you're going to look like after 5 minutes. So let me take my sound man cap off and move on here. How many people are sound people? I mean, is everybody here a sound person, or are you just wanting to learn to be a sound person? Everybody a sound person? How many people mix rock and roll bands, or rock gospel bands, or gospel contemporary music bands? Just one person? 2, 3, 4? Okay, great. Yeah, because when we get in my advanced class, that's primarily what we're going to focus on, is trying to understand the physics of sound and how it applies to mixing bands and your caster and all of those things. So I think what I'd like to start off with here is some terms and definitions out. Does everybody have a pencil with them? Because if you don't, there's probably some behind the pews. The reason is there's some terms that I felt were pretty important that didn't get on the slide here, so I need you to write these down. But let's start with some of the very basic ones. Now these are terms you're all going to run across, and the reason why I'm putting them up here, and it sounds a little bit confusing, is because frankly they are. You hear them a lot and you go, what is decay time? dB, dBA, decibel, decibel units, decibel volts, you know, I mean, so what we're going to try to do, at least in the next 15 minutes, is try to get a better understanding. And if you have any questions, please ask. I don't mind answering questions. The decay time, and we're going to get into that in another portion of this, but essentially when you hear the term decay time, that's used for a lot of things, mostly in compressors. What it is the recovery time of a compressor, and today, for those people who are going through the basics, you'll learn about what a compressor is and what it does and how it's going to help your audio. But one of the terms is decay time. That's a really important term to understand because it's the recovery time of the compressor. Once you understand that the compressor actually squeezes your sound, what the decay time is how much time it takes for your sound to come back to where it normally was before you squeezed it. We're going to bypass decibel right now because I'm going to get into that pretty in depth here in a few minutes. But let's move on to dynamic range. The dynamic range, when you hear this signal, this is a signal that is going to be with you for the rest of your lives, dynamic range. And what it is, it's the range of signals from the lowest level, the absolute lowest level, to the very loudest level. Okay? That, and it's measured in decibels, is your dynamic range of a piece.
Can you clip on that body pack before it falls?
That's no. That's part of
Trying to
it.
be creepy.
Hz, also commonly known as hertz, is a unit of frequency. And what a hertz is an AC cycle. I don't know if you all remember back from your mathematic days, trigonometry days, when your instructor put up on a board and add a y and an x axis, and then they drew a big old sine wave, okay? Well, that big old sine wave, from where it starts to where it comes right back around again, is called one cycle. That is 1 hertz, okay? And where you probably heard this term a lot is probably in your AC at home. 60 hertz, 60 cycles, same thing, okay? So it's understanding that it's a unit of frequency. When you hear something like 1 kHz, 1,000 hertz, K being 1,000. Another thing you're going to hear a lot is, the LEDs are overflowing, oh man, the LEDs are burning up! Well, what's LED? Well, simply put, electronically speaking, it's a light-emitting diode. And on your consoles and all of your effects devices, it's the little lights that flash at you. Sometimes when they flash, it's good. Sometimes when they flash, it's bad. And usually when they're red, they're bad. The octave, that's a terrible definition. But, hey, I wrote it, I stole it from a book, you know, plagiarizing here. An octave basically is, it's the interval, as it says here, between a given tone and its repetition, 8 tones above that. So A at 440, A again at 880. That's an octave. Okay? And a pad, it's not just a place where you flop, okay? And it's not just a place where you lay your head down on. A pad is actually it's a series of resistive networks that help to attenuate your sound. Attenuating means controlling the volume, quieting things down. And you use pads for a lot. A lot of your mid-range to upper-end boards, especially in the Soundcraft series, have what they call a 20 dB pad. We'll talk, like I said, we'll talk about dB here in just a few minutes. But they have what they call a 20 dB pad. And what a 20 dB pad is, and that's something you're going to hear the rest of your life, 10 dB pads, 20 dB pads. What it does is it effectively cuts the overall gain, the overall volume of your sound by 20 decibels. And where you would use something like this is, for instance, let's say you have a kick drum, and you have a microphone in this kick drum. The kick drum by nature is a pretty noisy instrument. Okay? So when that guy's playing, it's going to overamp the microphone a lot. And so what the 20 dB pad does is it allows you to actually be still, it allows you to quiet that down as the board sees it. Okay? He's still pounding this thing like this, but the board sees it like this. And then it allows you to crank up the volume without distorting. So a pad is a very important term. And knowing the difference between 10 dB and 20 dB, and 20 dB, of course, being 10 dB greater than 10 dB, is very important. Transducer. Simply stated, a transducer is a device that takes one form of energy and couples it into another form of energy. And the way we use it as audio engineers is it takes acoustical energy, my voice, transfers it into electrical energy, which can then be amplified. So your transducer is a device that takes acoustical energy or one form of energy and transfers it into another form of energy. And VU is a unit of volume. It stands for volume unit. And basically, a change of 1 VU is the same as a change of 1 dB. We're going to get into dB right now so you understand what I'm talking about. But the reason why VU is so important is because in our world, dB and VU are the terms that we live on. I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to make sound here, okay? It just takes the ability to understand some of these terms and how to use them. So when somebody says, turn something down by 1 VU, is the same as saying, turn something down by 1 decibel, which you can't hear. But that's essentially what it is. Okay, and the reason for the pencil and papers is I wanted to bring up some other things that I found this morning that I thought would be interesting. Let's talk about decibel. The decibel is the common unit of measurement in audio engineering. What I say up here is it's the smallest change in loudness the human ear can detect. Now, the thing about the decibel is there's a lot of different kinds of decibels. You have dBV, dBu, dBA, dB, and dBSPL. And all of those things have some meaning to them, okay? Basically what the meaning is what it is referenced to. So let's take dBSPL. I'm sorry, I'm reading from some cheat notes here. So what dBSPL is, SPL stands for sound pressure level, another term that you need to become familiar with. It's a unit of measuring sound, measuring the pressure of sound in a space.
Sound what?
Pressure level. And basically, this is about as hard as it's going to get you ready for this. 0 dBSPL is the reference to 0.000 dynes per centimeter squared. That's the official definition of what a dBSPL is. Basically, everything in dB has some kind of reference point to it. Okay? So know that dBSPL is used to measure loudness. Okay? And that 0 dBSPL is the point at which you can barely hear something if you have perfect hearing, like most of us who in audio don't. The other one is dBm. dBm is used to measure electrical power. Okay? So here's another term of dB, but now its meaning is slightly different than what you would normally associate dB with. This is used to determine the amount of electrical power. And its reference is 1 milliwatt. Boring stuff. Basically, this is used when you are talking about your microphones being able to output a certain amount of dBm, a certain amount of power that can go into its mixer. So that's where you're going to see this is on your microphone specifications. dBu is, that's a measurement of electrical voltage. Now, ironically, back in the 50s and 60s, they had a term called dBV. And actually, dBV is capital dBV, I'm sorry, small dBV is being replaced with dBu. So when you see dBV and dBu, small dBV, they're the same thing. So again, what dBu is the measurement of electrical voltage. dBW is it's an electrical measurement of power, WB watts, okay? And its reference point is 1 watt. This is used to measure really high power levels. When you're looking at amplifier specifications, typically they'll measure their output in dBW, okay, dBs per watt. Okay, any questions about the dB? Yeah, we can really go into dB, but it's mathematically probably one of the most mathematically challenging things you can get into. So that's it in the cursory. Another term that you want to become familiar with is phantom power. How many people have heard of phantom power? How many people know what phantom power is? Basically what phantom power is, when we get into microphone sections, it's a power, it's current that is required by condenser microphones. Typically all condenser microphones require some kind of power source to them, as we'll see when we get into microphones. And phantom power is a way that typically your console, usually on lower end consoles you don't have this feature, so you have to buy something external, does the same thing, okay? But typically on your consoles, you have a balanced line. I'm going to define balanced line, but you have basically 3 pins. And what it does is it takes the power from the board, has a special circuit in it, a special power supply, that takes, typically speaking, 48 volts, runs it down the wire and up to the microphone. It gives power to the microphone. There's no noise involved. It's just a very clean way of powering your microphone. The thing you have to be careful about with phantom power is a couple of things. One, you want to make sure the microphones you buy can utilize 48 volts. You want to make sure that the phantom power that you're buying can produce 48 volts. Some phantom powers, especially on really low-end consoles, only provide 24 volts. Now, if a microphone will work on 24 volts, no problem. But there is a problem, because if a microphone's looking for 48 volts, what do you think is going to happen when you give it 24 volts? Anybody?
Very loud.
Right. If it wants 48 volts and you give it 24 volts, it's not going to have enough power to accurately reproduce the sound that you're trying to put through that microphone. And a lot of side effects can happen from that. One being distortion. You're going to be cranking up your board up there trying to make this microphone do something that it's physically can't do. And so it's good to know that if your microphone requires 48 volts, and typically all of them do, especially in our applications, then you want to make sure that the power supply and the phantom power that you get from a console can provide you 48 volts of phantom power. Okay, talkback. It's not what your kids do either, okay? How many people know what a talkback circuit is? Okay, have you ever used a talkback circuit? What do you use it for?
Talking back to my band members.
Yeah, exactly. Many times your consoles, if you're lucky enough, like with a Soundcraft console, to have a talkback circuit inside of the console when you're running live, it makes it really handy when you've got a bunch of crew up here or the band to be able to stand back there, punch down on this talkback. It's a special little button. It's got a special little mic built into it. You punch down on it, you talk back to your band, and they can tell you, shut up, which they will. So the talkback circuitry is pretty important for you to communicate between yourself and the band, as opposed to what I was doing up here yelling. So, hey, here's another one, proximity effect. Does everybody know what proximity effect is? Okay. Dynamic microphones inherently have a quality or a problem, you term it, that's associated with them, and it's called proximity effect. And what proximity effect is that it increases the bass response that this microphone does the closer you get it to the source. So I don't have really a dynamic on front of me, but if I had a dynamic, the closer I get to it, the more bass that you hear out there. And that can be a real problem, especially if you're going up to an instrument and you put this microphone expecting to get the real sheen and clarity out of the instrument. You got the microphone right up against the instrument. You get a lot of pre-emphasized bass that maybe you don't want. And so you're trying to compensate for that back at the board. So that is a term you're going to hear a lot, is proximity effect. And it can be really a problem, especially with singers who like to get on top of the microphone and swallow the mic. And they do, man. Reverberation time. Kind of goes with decay time, but we use reverberation time, commonly seen in all manuals and commonly seen to you as RT60. Okay, RT with a little 60 underneath it. The reason why that's important is because what that is the amount of time that it takes for an acoustical energy to reflect off the sound walls and be reduced by 60 decibels. Okay? And so RT60, a lot of times, like people like Bill who design churches like this, will take RT60 into effect so that they can try to offset that. You want to try to offset the RT60. Again, this course probably won't go into it, but if you're very interested in a lot of the stuff we're talking about today, there's excellent texts out. This book here, put out by Fender, is called Making the Connection. And for those people who are taking the basic, and maybe even those of you who are advanced and feel that you could use a refresher, this is really a good book because it talks on your terms. And your terms being, well, I'm not a math major. I don't have to understand calculus or third order differential equation. I don't have to understand, you know, all of these great things, how to integrate over infinity in order to find my answer, which actually sound is. What this does is it takes and breaks it all down into really nice logical terms. It's got some great graphs, got some real humor to it, and it's really good. So there's a lot of good resources out there for you. Did you have a question? No? Just quickly here. Another term, I don't know if you've all heard of this, called TRS or tip ring sleeve. Has anybody ever heard of this term, TRS? Okay, you guys have back there? Yeah, TRS, tip ring sleeve. How many people have seen the stereo plug, what they call the stereo plug? It looks like a jack, and it's got, I don't know how to explain it. It looks like a stereo plug. You know, you got 2 points to it, yeah.
Looks like the end of the jack, the plug would be on the end of a regular size headset.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, excellent. Yeah, if you take a look at your headphones and take a look at the jack on the end of it, that is what they call a TRS. Tip being the tip. I know you're probably not going to see this, but the tip is this very top portion here on your cable. The ring, if you look at that, is another piece in between you. If you'll look at this cable, and I'll pass the cable around here. If you look at this cable, you'll see that there's a little piece of Teflon that separates the tip from this shield here. Well, in a tip ring sleeve cable, you actually have 2 pieces of Teflon, and your ring is the piece of metal between the 2 pieces of Teflon. Tip being first, ring, and then your shield or sleeve is what's left over above the second piece of your Teflon. If I can find a cable, I can mess up here. Here you go. So this is a typical 1/4" cable, by the way. It's called tip and sleeve. Now, just kind of picture there's another piece of black ring that goes around this, and that's called TRS. And the reason why you use TRS is it's on some low-end consoles, like we won't mention Mac or anything, but like on low-end consoles where they don't provide you 3-pin balance cables, but they do have the ability to do balance and build it over balance for the people in the beginning. This is a way for them to cut dollars, give you the ability to do balance, and you know, basically have a balanced circuit there without spending a whole fortune. The other place that you see tip ring sleeve is on channel, what they call channel inserts. We'll go over that today on the consoles, what a channel insert is. That's typically the 2 places you're going to find TRS is used. Well, hey, let's talk about balance. What is balance? Basically, balance uses a special cable and a special connector called a Canon connector. Okay? Canon just happened to be the first company that came out with them. That's why they call them Canon connectors. XLR is another term they call for these, which stands for a balanced line return. Okay, XLR. And basically what balance does, the whole idea behind balanced cables is up at your mixer, you have what they call a differential amplifier. Okay? Let's not get bogged down by terms, but suffice it to say you have a differential amplifier. And when you connect this cable into that, the first thing it sees is your differential amplifier. Why do I want a differential amplifier? Because what happens is we get radio noise, we get low-level noise, we get all kinds of noise that gets picked up on this cable. So what the balance does is it allows you to have 2 hot circuits which run back to your console. Okay? 2 hot circuits. You actually have 3. The third one's ground. Okay? Keep that in mind. Third one's ground. We're not really concerned about that. What we're concerned about is the 2 hot leads. So the 2 hot leads have the exact same amount of noise, they have the same noise print, the same amount of radio interference on them. What happens though is when it hits the differential amplifier of your mixing console, the differential amplifier inverts one of the lines, makes it 180 degrees out of phase from the other one. What that does is it completely eliminates all the noise on the line. That's one way to get a lot of power and a lot of noise reduction on your line. That's why balance became so popular in the 70s. We're not really going to talk about amplifiers here today, but I do want to talk about a couple of things that you should really concern yourselves with. How many people have ever heard the term biamp or triamp? Okay. What biamplification is it's a way for you to, biamplification allows you to separate your horns from your low end, okay? In this cabinet here, you have horns which is one system, and you have the low end, which is another system. What bi-amp does, once you start studying sound, you start getting into the physics of sound, you're going to understand intuitively that it takes a lot more power to move these big old waves, these big old speakers, than it does to move these tiny little waves. Sound it's physical. I mean, you can't see it. It's like air. You can't see it, but it's physical. I guarantee you, you stand at a concert for 45 minutes and let these things pound at your body for 45 minutes at 105 dB SPL. You're going to feel it, okay? Your ears are going to bleed. You know, your teeth are going to hurt. Your face is going to age. Your hair is going to start getting gray. You have to turn your head around so you look like the kids. I mean, really, so you have to understand that sound is very physical, okay? And so in being physical, comes back to physics. And the physics of sound says that to move a really large frequency takes a lot of power. To move a small frequency takes a small amount of power. That said, bi-amplification allows you to dedicate an amplifier strictly for the low end here. Typically, what you want to do in a bi-amplified system is you want to give your meatiest, biggest power amplifier to your low end. Then you want to give 1/3 of that power to your high end. Okay? So if you've got a 1,000-watt amplifier, last thing you want to do is pump 1,000 watts of high end. You don't need it. You're throwing away power. You may need it for your low end, but you don't need it for your top end. You're throwing away power. So you take 1/3 of that, about 300 watts, to power your high end. Of course, before you run off and do that, make sure you check the specifications of the horn's power handling capabilities and any crossover networks that you do, because you can fry these things. They're great when they fry too, man. I love it. I love to see amplifiers. Hey, we had that happen the other night. Tri-amplification is the same thing as bi-amplification, except that you use preamps. And in that case, what you typically have is you typically have a cabinet which has a high, a mid, and a low. And a mid being somewhere between 8 and 10 inches, and then your low end being 12 and 15 inches. And again, it's the same principle. It allows you to dedicate power where power is best used. What that ultimately does is it cleans up your sound. It gives you, the engineer, better control over the sound of that cabinet. The problem is, typically when a manufacturer like JBL or these OAPs have what they call a full range cabinet, you all heard of full range? Typically what full range means is you take one amplifier, you plug one cable in, bang, you're done. It takes care of doing all the high and low ends for you. A couple of problems associated with that. The first problem is you're relying on their engineering of their cabinet to say this is the best crossover points. Hey, they're not always right, man. Especially depending on the room that you stick it in. They may be completely far off base. In an anechoic chamber, which is a very solid chamber, actually an anechoic chamber, you can stand in there, you can take a hammer, you can take an anvil, you can sit there and slam it, and you can never hear them. Guaranteed. That's what an anechoic chamber does. What it does is it allows them to measure their speakers and their microphones and everything else that they're measuring in a perfectly confined environment. I was in IBM's anechoic chamber one time. And man, it's crazy. You walk in there, they shut the doors, you got these big sonic wedges all around, and you can literally yell and you can't hear it. I mean, it's completely void of any sound pressure. So what I'm saying is, some engineer somewhere said, hey, you're going to cross this over here, you're going to cross this over here, you're going to cross this over here. And for most general purpose applications, yeah, it suffices. But it doesn't give you much control. The other thing is you're throwing a huge amplifier, and that amplifier has to completely power this whole cabinet. So what's happening is you're being totally inefficient with your amplifiers. Okay, so you're having to buy more amplifiers to do the same thing with just a regular full range cabinet. Bi and tri-amplification allows you to spend your money wisely. The problem is now you have to buy what they call a crossover network, another thing we'll cover today for those people who want to know about crossovers. What a crossover is just a specialized it's a specialized EQ network that allows you to tune to the frequencies that you want for that cabinet, to make that cabinet sound the best. So, get familiar with those terms, bi and tri-amplification. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was dampening factors. Has anybody ever heard dampening factors? How many people have gone out to buy amplifiers? Yeah, okay, that's probably why you haven't heard of it. Dampening factor is real important. I've got this big, long definition, but hey, basically what dampening factor is, it's the ability for the amplifier to control how the cone of the speaker moves when there's no signal to it. I mean, if you can sit down with a microscope, you can see these speakers actually moving like this when there's no sound put to them, okay? And a dampening factor actually controls that. Well, so what? What does that mean? Well, what that really equates to is, on like amplifiers that have a real low dampening factor, you get sloppy sounding bass, terrible sounding mid-ranges. On something that has a real high dampening factor, okay, a sloppy sounding bass. Give me an example. PV. I'm sorry, you know. I'm a sound guy. I hate PV stuff, okay? PV amplifiers, they're great, they're cheap, they're the worst! I'm sorry, you PV rep? You don't rep PV, do you?
Look, me?
Yes.
You can't grab JBL and PV at the same time.
You go, you see? JBL is the greatest. I'm trying to get something from a studio segment. Honest to God, PV, what makes PV great is its price. And engineers are trying to do a good job by doing a price performance factor. People, the stuff is junk. I mean, you can sit here and argue with me all day, and I gotta understand, my ears are closed to that. PV is junk. You really want to spend the money to get something with a high dampening factor. For instance, if you take a PV cabinet, okay, take a PV sub, 18-inch sub, and a PV amplifier, and you run 60, 80 hertz through that, you're gonna hear crap. You are gonna hear garbage. It's gonna flap. It's gonna sound terrible. It really will. At the same time, you take a system that's really matched. Take a JBL 18, for instance, across the crown with a real high dampening factor. Now what do you got? You got a tight bass in. I mean, you can really feel that stuff bouncing off your chest, which is what you want as a sound. And you want to feel that stuff bounce off your chest. You want that tight, you want that tight feeling in bass. You want that crystal clarity in the highs, and you want that nice, subtle sound in mid-range. So dampening factor is very important. When you go to buy an amplifier, you sit down with your salesperson, you find out what the dampening factor is, and you compare those with other amplifiers that you're looking at. And the higher the dampening factor, the better. The better it's going to make your system sound. So that's about all I had. Oh, the other one you're going to hear is driver. Has anybody ever heard the word driver? Well, simply put, this is a driver, okay? A speaker is a driver. Typically, they associate drivers with a little ball, a magnetic ball that you stick on a horn. Well, that's also a driver too. But typically stated, a driver is a speaker. Okay, it's just a fancy way for audio engineers to say, I'm cool, I know what I'm talking about. So there are a lot of definitions, there's a lot of terms, there's a lot of things you're going to come across as engineers that you have to understand. And terms and definitions are definitely the most important. Now, are there any questions about the terms that we've gone over? Are there any terms that you've heard that I didn't cover here that you have questions about? Nothing? Really? Okay. Sir? Woofer, mid-range, and tweeters. Well, we can cover those right now. Those are fancy terms for low, medium, and high. What a woofer is, I don't know where that came from. Whoop, whoop. I guess so, because woofing is a low end, okay? Woofer, when you hear woofer, it is synonymous with low end. Typically 12 to 15 to 18 inch. That's typically considered a woofer. When you hear the word woofer, think of it as low range, low end. A mid-range is the same thing as a mid sound. It is typically the sound, and also let me state this about woofer. Typically woofer cuts over from about 180 hertz down, okay? Typically about 180 hertz down, 60, 80, 40. You know, that kind of stuff that you hear on your neighborhoods every night. That's 20 and 40 hertz. That's the woofer that you hear. At least in my neighborhood, I do. Mid-range is from about 200, 180, 200, up to about, subjective, okay, 2.5, 3K. That would all constitute in your mid-range. And that's where you find a lot of your clarity, and your, not sibilance, but your clarity and definition is in the mid-range. Mid-range also sometimes goes up into 7K. Okay, I mean that's completely subjective, but typically those are the areas. And then a tweeter, again, I think a tweeter has to do from a little Tweety bird out there somewhere, tweeting at a very high frequency. And that's what it is. Tweeter is typically synonymous with high frequency. And typically that is in the range from about 5K on up to, you can't even hear it, okay? Typically 20K. By the way, most humans can only hear up to about 14K. And people, most of the age group in this room here, I challenge you to hear 14K. You know, I can't hear 14K. I can feel 14K in my sinuses, but I can't hear 14K. So, does that answer your question? So, tweeter's high, mid is mid-range, and woofer is low. Any other questions about definitions? Sir?
On these speakers, if you're running a biamp, does it take a special determination on the back of the speaker, or is that the function of the crossover?
It's usually a function at your crossover. No, you don't have to terminate your speaker. Typically,
It'll terminate the same on the speaker.
yeah, typically what's going to happen, these speakers are not set up for biamp application. I hope I don't kill somebody now. Typically on these speakers right here, this is set up for what they call full range. There's not much you can do with this speaker, folks, okay, to be honest with you. You got full range input, one amplifier, one input going to go into it. In a bi-amplified system, typically what you'll find is you'll find this, which goes into the manufacturer's crossover network, predefined setup, you can't have anything to do with it. Then you'll find a whole other set of jacks up here, and they are clearly marked, hopefully they're clearly marked, make sure you got a flashlight, high, medium, and low. Okay, and you take the appropriate amplifier cable to the appropriate jack termination. That's about the only termination that you see in the speaker. Any other termination usually happens at the crossover network itself. Anybody not understand that? I can go with that further. This is a full range cavity. This is not biamplified. I like it. Is that even? Okay. Okay, so if there's no more questions on definitions, let's, God, it's lunchtime. Bill wanted me to get into microphones, but they took a little bit longer today to do praise and worship, which I have no problems with at all. Love praise and worship. Would everybody like to take lunch in about 10 or 15 minutes, or do you want me to go ahead and go through the microphone section? Or would you rather have Bill go through the microphone section and you breakout sessions? Which would it be? How many people want me to go through microphones right now? Okay. Really? Okay. Bill, it's going to take about 30 minutes to go through microphones.
Well, I think lunch will be cold.
Lunch is not here?
Lunch is here, lunch will be cold.
Okay. So about 30 minutes?
If everyone doesn't mind cold lunch, I wouldn't advise it.
Let's do lunch. No, I'm not hungry. How many people want to do lunch?
Hey.
There you go. Bill, you're going to have to do microphones in your session.
All right. That's not a problem. I'd rather do that anyhow so that you can get into more advanced concepts on the bias and some basic stuff. So.
Okay.
All right. Anybody that hasn't been to the kitchen, the way you go is follow me.
Hey, Bill, these...
It was reset because all the filters were already set.
Sorry about that.
Hit bypass.
I just reset it. Here's bypass.
All right, we're going to have to reset the filters now. Brad, would you go ahead and bring the gain up on channel 13 a little bit so we can get some ring and reset
Oh,
the
I'd love
filters?
to bring up the gain on channel 13.
Come on, Brad. Okay. Now we have about a zillion filters set, and you can hear how it
I gotta still have bypass. We need to do it again.
What?
Now it's on that. That's all right.
Here we
A
go.
little more gentle, please. Thank you, that's better.
Let's go.
Now, this is how most lavaliers sound, is something like this. And then with a good engineer, then what's happening is if you're hearing the feedback, he's not bringing it down, but the feedback exterminator is kicking in and setting filters and eliminating the feedback. Once the filters get set, then that frequency won't feed back again. You can hear it already starting to clear up a little. Still got some echo because we've got the gain just a little too high. But when we do stuff with our group, we actually will But the nice thing is once you have set your filters, then it can pretty much take care of it from there. It will lock on certain filters and then take a couple dynamic, and as more feedback tries to occur, then it will take over those and switch around to the most current frequency that's giving problems. Okay, there we go. That's probably good enough. Hey Brad, now what I want to do is bring the gain down just a touch and then hit bypass. Oop, that's too much. Keep my level up. 1, 2, 1, 2, a little bit more. Where the feedback exterminator is working, we'll hit bypass, not reset.
Okay, all right, here we go.
Let's go ahead and get rid of the ring first though. Okay, I still got some ring there.
Well, that's EQ.
Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, there we go, that's a little better sounding. Now I have the monitors on too, which makes it worse for lavalier. It's a real bad situation for a lav mic. So, are you ready to try the bypass?
Yeah.
Don't kill me, please. Okay.
Go.
Go ahead.
How long am I going to do this?
Huh?
I'll get you.
All right,
Go.
go ahead. There we go. Now you're hearing it without the feedback exterminator. Go ahead and punch it back in, please. Thank you, there we go. There's
Try
the
to get on
feedback
bypass.
exterminator. Huh?
Bypass.
All right, try bypass again. You got it on bypass? There we go. You can hear it without the feedback exterminator. And that's with the feedback exterminator in. So it does work. We've done, go ahead and kill my monitors on this. We've done sound for a couple, I can hear you.
You might want to say that
Talkback
this is a combat network actually.
Yes, this is talkback.
The ringing that you're hearing is actually, as a result, the room needs to be changed. So, I mean, the feedback was effectively eliminated, but the ringing that you're hearing is the room needing to be rung out.
Okay. The other thing too is, since we're talking about talkback systems, we were just talking about this story that I heard, and another thing we were just talking about it. You don't want your sound guy joining in with the praise and worship team on the talkback mic. Usually, try to restrain from using that. I did hear a story about a church that, as they were singing, someone was very much off pitch, and they're looking at each other and singing and what's going on. And they finally looked upstairs, and the sound guy was just worshiping.
I think with the graphic EQ, right? I mean, you could. The problem with the graphic EQ is the graphic EQ has got such a wide band spectrum on it. When you hit one frequency, you're not just turning down one frequency, you're hitting all the frequencies that go off to the side. The word octave comes to mind. So on a graphic equalizer, the numbers that you see are, depending on what they are, if you're using what they call a 1/3 octave equalizer, then the numbers that you see are exactly 1/3 apart from each other. So when you're pulling that frequency down, if you're pulling down 100, and the next frequency to that is 75, and the next frequency off to that is 120, then you're pulling down all of the frequencies that 100 does between 100, 75, and 120. The problem with feedback is usually a specific frequency that's giving you a problem. And with the feedback exterminator, it's like a graphic EQ, except it has these very, very tight, fine frequency control that it actually finds the frequency and it pulls that frequency down without affecting anything around it. So what happens is, yeah, you could do that with EQ, but if you're trying to do that with EQ, if we were to demonstrate that, we could do the same thing with the graphic EQ, but you'd have a very muddy sound afterwards. You know, it sounds kind of muffled and whatnot because you're trying to get rid of all that high frequency. What happens here is you get rid of all that high frequency, but you don't have the muddiness because it's going to a specific frequency and it's not affecting everything around it. Does that make sense? So that's the cool thing about the feedback exterminator. Plus it's fast. It's really, you can't dive on a graphic equalizer fast enough to get to that frequency where this thing can. I mean, it's split fast. That's my soapbox.
Now, how does that affect your music, though? You're pumping music through it, though.
Same thing, no effect. I mean, the effect is so minimal, okay, when you're pumping music through it, that, you know, you're not affecting the overall sound. Again, if you did that on a graphic EQ, you would muddy up your music. With this, it's the same thing. I mean, you heard his voice, it sounded pretty clear still, but we had the gain pumped up pretty high, and we had the feedback effectively eliminated. The ringing you were hearing was because the room needed a tune, okay, and that's where your graphic EQ comes in. But despite the ringing, the actual feedback that you heard was under control, and his voice was still, you were able to hear his voice without too much noise, okay? Have you had experience otherwise?
Yeah, we've got one in our rack, and I'm not sure when the designer put it in, because we have it set mostly for our choir mics that are named choir mics.
Figure that out, but cable does have memory to it. Also, this isn't so bad as some that I've seen, but after a period of time, you get stress points in here, okay, on these cables. And what that means is that there's each inside of one of these cables, this isn't like one solid piece of stuff. You've got hundreds of tiny little strands of wires that go in there. And the more that you sit there and wrap and bend these cables, the more that you're going to break these wires off. So when you go to do your cables, make sure that you wrap them in a manner to where you form a loop, okay? And the way I did that is sometimes, well, I mean, first off, look at the memory of this. Look at that. See the memory? See how kinked up it is? Okay? So what you want to do is you want to form a loop. Now, if you get to a situation like this, okay, what you want to do is you still want to continue that. What you want to do is you want to twist it one time, okay? The next one should fall right in place, okay? And if it doesn't, then you just take it and you give it a little twist as you wrap it. And then you put a little wire tie on it like Bill's got here. You can get these from any garbage container. And then you throw that in your bag, okay? You gotta make sure you dance on it first. Yeah. But that's really important, and that gets overlooked so many times. Even these guys up here, I don't know how many people tonight heard the bass drop out. You did? The bass was playing, it was going along fine. The last song, about a quarter of the way through, the bass went out. Couldn't hear the bass. Couldn't see it playing, but I could hear it. The reason is they had some bad cables in the patch bay. And we found that out while we were doing sound check up there. Was, you know, we had to jiggle the cable a little bit, and finally the bass came in. Well, what happens is over time, these things get dirty. They get oxidized, they get smog on them, they get all kinds of dust. And maybe you can't see it, but it makes a big difference. And when you put that into a plug, if you have all that oxidation on there, you're not going to have a good solid contact. There's stuff you can buy from like Bill or other places that allows you to keep these things clean. You know, every 6 or 12 months, it's good to pull all your cables out, take a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday after church or whatever, and sit there and just make sure you clean all your cables. Keep all your contacts clean. Because that's some insurance that you can buy that's going to make sure that every one of your performances is going to sound good and clean. So that's that. The other thing, too, I wanted to talk about real quick is you're sound people, okay? You're the gurus. You are the gods of sound. Nobody knows sound better than you, right? Wrong! Especially if you're mixing musicians. Okay, we all have egos. But the sound person's ego really has to be tempered around a musician. I guarantee you, I got $10 in my pocket right now, I'll bet anybody. There's not a musician out there whose ego isn't bigger than the sound person's. And I swear, they will argue with you until their ego completely bursts. And they're always right. And the thing is as a sound person, it's your job to really weigh those egos out. Yeah, sure, they may be wrong, okay, but give them the benefit of the doubt. Let them go ahead and ego out on you all you want. When you're up there working, it's your show. Okay? It really is your show. That's right, man. It's your show. Really, a sound man in a large environment can make or break a group. If a group really sounds terrible, yeah, there's not a whole lot you can do except put your tail between your legs and leave. Really, because if a group sounds bad, you're only going to amplify that bad sound. Hopefully the groups you're mixing, have a little bit more credence to them and sound a lot better than that. So really, the musician doesn't understand and some of them do, they don't really understand just how much control the sound person has. And that brings up another definition here for you ladies. You are sound men. You are not sound people. You're not sound boys. You're not sound women. You're not sound girls. You're sound men. I have never, in my 30 years, I have never had anybody come up to me and say, has anybody seen the sound person? Has anybody ever seen the sound boy? It's a sound. You are a sound man. It has nothing to do with your genetics. You're a sound man. So if you have a problem with that, get over it. You don't need that. So, is there any other general questions about that? There's so many general things that you have to know. When you come into a sound gig, I think it's so important that you be there before the band. You're always going to be there before the band, okay? But make sure you have a good schedule established, especially for those people who are going to go on and do live gigs where you're dealing with live concerts and you have bands. make sure you have the system set up and ready for sound check. Make sure that you have a schedule established that they come in and that they're going to sound check at 3:30 p.m. And you make sure they're there, and you make sure you have their manager's phone number, and you make sure, I mean, this is your job, to make sure as a sound person that those people are there and ready to sound check. All too often, Plank Eye was a good example. All too often, when we mix Plank Eye, great band, everybody know Plank Eye? When we mix, well, if you don't, they're a great band. When we mixed Plank Eye down in Tucson, the guys were really great, but they had really bad egos. And one of the things they said is, well, okay, we're done with our sound check, go ahead and work it out when the other band comes up here. You know, we're sitting there going, wait a minute, you know, we barely got a sound check, you know. The sound check is ultimately so important because that's what's going to make you sound good, is the ability to get a good quality sound check, hopefully before the house gets full with people. So, and that goes back to dealing with egos like that. You know, musicians, they don't care, especially if they're the top billing act. Work it out with the backup band, we don't care, you know. You just better make sure it sounds good by the time we take stage, which is what their attitude was. And that's really not unbecoming of any other band I've ever mixed. But keep in mind that you want to make sure that you have established schedules with their manager or their leader of their band or somebody that's responsible, that you know that you're going to have your equipment set up, tuned, ready to go for them to take stage at 3:30 p.m. for a sound check that you're going to do. You're going to sound check for 45 minutes with those guys. You're going to move off. You're going to write down all of the lead band settings, and then the backup band comes up, and you sound check the backup band. And actually, usually the backup bands, the guys just suffer because they usually don't get the sound check. Usually what happens is the band walks in, you schedule 3:30, this is so true. You schedule 3:30 p.m., the show starts at 7, at 7 walks in for sound check. Okay? And that's what happened at Plank Eye. The band walked in for sound check, we had a house full of people, they let the people in, we had to do sound check while the band was up there doing sound check. So what happens is they come up for 10 minutes, terrible sound check, they walk the stage, and now the backup band takes off. So now you've got to tune everything in while they're doing their performance, because they're not sound checking, man, they're out there doing their performance. So you as a sound person have to keep a really clear head, you know. Don't let the day's problems get you down. Don't let the fact that you're a sound man and not a sound person get on your mind, okay? Don't let any of those out, and it's hard to do, but that's what balances a good sound man from one sound man from another, is the ability to wash all that stuff off, focus right on the moment at hand. And the moment at hand is getting a really good sound. And so all too often sound men forget that. And they're off in their own ego saying, well, you know, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Really, you've been contracted by the band to do nothing more than amplify their sound and try to make their sound consistent. So, I think I've gotten off my soapbox. Bill, are you going to cover tools?
What?
You going to cover tools?
Tools?
Stuff you have to bring, mic, speakers, and all that. Make sure you bring a Phillips head screwdriver. If you don't know what that is, there's a lot of books out there that'll teach you. It's the one with the crosses on it. Okay? Make sure you have a good Phillips head screwdriver. And it would be well to have two different sizes. You want a fine point Phillips head screwdriver, and you want a relatively big Phillips head screwdriver. A lot of the music uses both sizes. A lot of music gear. You want the big head one for, you know, cabinets where you have to take off the backs and repair a speaker in 3 minutes. And then the little ones are for like effects and increases. And believe me, you learn how to change speakers pretty quickly in the concert. And you also want a flathead screwdriver of two sizes, one that's a smaller and one that's a larger flathead screwdriver, or a common screwdriver they call it. Really important. And if you can get away with it, get a Black & Decker electric screwdriver, make sure it's nice and charged. Okay, but I mean, it's good to have, especially if you have to take backs off, because it's bang, the back is off, you got it in the speaker cabinet, you're changing your speaker, and you're done, you're ready to go. So, electric screwdriver would be nice, but those screwdrivers are really necessary. You want to bring a hammer, okay? You want, no, you can, so you fix, this is to fix equipment like this, okay? You know how many times I've gotten in a situation where it says, okay, you're in my facility, I'll be dang if you're going to run the snake down this floor, you're going to have to hang it off there. So what are you going to do? You got to get up there with some nails and stuff, you have to hang your snake. Okay, so you want a hammer and some nails, okay? Whether or not you use that, you need them, okay? Believe me, you need them if you're doing remote gigs. You want a staple gun. Put that in your gig bag. You need a staple gun. Again, for the same thing, you're running lengths of cable and you want to be able to keep those things nice and neat and out of the way. One thing I hate is seeing a stage where there's a ton of cable running around, or a place where there's cables all tracing back to the board. First off, you put yourself into a legal liability by doing that. If somebody on stage trips and breaks their neck over a cable that you laid down, believe me, they'll take you to court, and you're liable for them. If somebody out in the audience trips over the snake, the facility who the place is liable for that. You've been contracted by the facility, you're liable for that, and you will go to court over them. Make no mistake about it, they will sue you. So make sure these tools are used to keep things out of the way and clear, okay? Cable wraps. Make sure you bring plenty of cable wraps. And if you don't know what a cable wrap is, you can buy them they're a little plastic thing that fits over your cables, and then you plug one into another and you pull it, and it keeps it nice and bundled. That's what they call a cable tie or a cable wrap. Gaffer's tape, also known as duct tape, is essential. You cannot have enough duct tape, gaffer's tape. You can buy a case of gaffer's tape, and it's gone after every gig, and I guarantee you, you can't have enough duct tape. Some of the other things, you want a flashlight and plenty of backup batteries. Okay? You want a good, solid flashlight and backup batteries. Bring extra 9-volt batteries. I mean, if you go out to Price Club and buy that pack for $9 of Ever-Readies and keep in your gig bag, because musicians invariably go, my battery died, I don't have a battery, oh, the world's coming to an end. And as a sound person, you know, it's kind of your job to make sure the sound flows well, so you just go, here you go. And of course, on the contract, write down $10 for the battery. Business is business, man. So make sure you bring extra 9-volt batteries. That's really important. And if you're touring with the band and you get to know the band, something you don't need, but it's a nice to have, at least the band will appreciate it. Get to know the different guitar players' strings and the drummer's stick sizes, and it's good to throw those extra in your bag. If they break a string, it's great to throw a pack of strings at them. That's a nice to have. You don't have to, but if you're touring with bands, it's really good to know what they're using, so they have, they know that they can rely on you for backup. What else in the tools market? Man, you need a volt-ohm meter. What they call a VOM, a V-O-M, a volt-ohm meter is what it's called. You can buy them at Radio Shack for $25, $15. And that allows you to do such things as check your speakers to see if there's a short circuit, check your wires to see if you have a short circuit, plug them into your AC outlet to make sure you're running 120, or if you've got a real bad problem, make sure you got it switched right so you don't fry yourself when you do it. But a volt-ohm meter that's an essential tool for you. Okay, I mean, if you don't have a volt-ohm meter, you're kind of blinded out there. And then the last three things that you want to bring with you is extra cabling. You want to bring extra shielded cabling, which is guitar cable. You want to bring extra mic cable, just a few feet. You want to bring extra speaker cable. And I know this is a lot to carry in a gig bag. My gig bag is huge. As a matter of fact, I have 2 huge suitcases. I mean, I swear, 2 huge suitcases. Every time I go to a gig, I've got backup mic cables. I've got everything that you can imagine. If something goes wrong, man, I don't have to go any further than my suitcase to get everything I need. And then go to Radio Shack and pick up extra 1/4-inch jacks, both the stereo type and the mono type, and pick up XLR, both male and female, and just throw them in your gig bag. I mean, those things break constantly. And so it's always good to have. And don't buy the ones with the plastic ends, Make sure you buy the ones with the good, solid metal ends to them. Spend an extra 50 cents, and buy the metal ones. Because the plastics will last you about a gig. And then after a gig is, you got to go out and resolder all the stuff. Oh, yeah. And then I forgot, soldering iron and solder. Absolutely. A soldering iron and solder kit is essential to have out on these gigs. So if you keep those things, those really are common sense items. And if I've overlooked something, and I probably have.
2 things you might want to mention. I found that using regular duct tape, how bad it scuzzes up your cords compared to the gaffer's tape.
Right.
On the board, finally somebody told me about using the artist tape on there.
Oh,
to keep the
right.
board a lot cleaner.
Yeah, on your scribble strips? Yeah, the stuff that Bill has down here is the worst stuff you can have for a scribble strip. One of the things you'll notice is it hasn't started to wear away yet, but over a period of time on your scribble strip, this kind of tape here, the medical tape, is probably one of the better, but it's not the best to use. It's a lot better than gaffer's tape or duct tape. But this stuff will tend to stick to it, causing a white residue to always be on this board. Duct tape will almost immediately do that. The minute you put duct tape down here and you pull it up, you're going to have a bunch of garbage and sticky, funky stuff all over the place on your board. So the stuff that you had mentioned, artist tape, that's right. Artist tape isn't as sticky, and it's great. You just whip out a strip, bang, you lay it down, you scribble on it, and then you pull it off, and it doesn't leave any residue. and they call it artist tape.
If you go to Home Depot in the paint section,
Like masking tape?
yeah, in their masking tape section, they've got a roll of,
Typically in here, there's nothing in here that's going to be erased if you stick a magnet around it. But what's going to happen if you stick a magnet around here is magnets create a magnetic field. And a magnetic field has the natural tendency of a magnetic field is to change sound. It's going to bend sound. It's going to make it sound like something that it isn't. So if you have a magnet here, first off, it's going to change the sound of this board. You're introducing a whole new magnetic field to this. And so you're going to have some problems. You may hear some weird sounds coming out of your board because you have a magnet on there. And so don't worry about erasing something here. Just worry about the fact that if you put a magnet down here, it's really going to color your sound. It really is, believe me. And also, if you stick a cassette tape down there, well, it's gone. So, okay, well, that's common sense stuff. Any other questions or anything? You're ready to go, man.
We've got some dogs in there, I think.
Yeah,
Well, what they're-
because I'm already with them.
Yeah.
I'm like, save money, but Ashley's in it cleaner.
Yeah. You know, that's what I was wanting to specify, but they would not go for
But
it.
you know what? There is a reason. What I wanted to talk about today, I have some prepared stuff over here, but this is a small group. And I mean, I can sit here and bore you with rhetoric on how this is what a microphone is, and this is what a graphic EQ is. And maybe that's what you want me to do. What I'd kind of like to do is open this up to you. And what I'd like to know is, how would you like me to run this? Would you like me to run this as a structured, or would you like to just, let's put some questions up here, let's get some stuff that's on your mind, some real audio stuff that's on your mind. Let's see if we can work through it as a group, and maybe have those answers. How do you feel about that? First off, how many people want me to go through a structure? Yeah, and it can be real boring. Okay, well then that says that what we want to do is kind of keep this open and flowing. We have about 3 hours, I'd say, and we can take breaks if it's getting too mundane or whatever, at least until she announces cookies. If you guys want to take a break, if anybody needs to make a bio break, feel free just to get up and walk out. If you get bored or whatever, you want to go home, feel free to get up and walk out. I won't take offense to it. So with that in mind,
Bring setup time?
Yeah, what are the most
Yeah,
important
we're
things
doing
that you
sound
need
check.
to,
I think a routine is a good idea.
a routine?
I really think a routine, because I've noticed that if I have a steady routine, like, okay, I go down to the stage and I find out how many mics we need, and I write everything down, and then I set everything up on stage. Then I go up to the balcony. Next thing I do is I patch everything in, and this is where everything's going to go.
okay.
Next thing I do is I power the board on, and then, well, as I'm patching it, I got to label what's going to be on the board. If I go through that setup, then I shouldn't have any problem with any kind of things going wrong, because usually I forget something if I don't have a routine.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I sure do. I think that's great. I think a routine is really good. And for your scenario where you have one stationary, now do you do a lot of live mixing with bands? Do you take
No. I usually just do really no bands.
Okay.
Hardly ever.
Well, let's talk about this question here. Most important things to sound check. Now, do you want that as sound check, or do you want, what things do I need to do? What sort of things do
Yeah,
I need
what's
to
the
prepare?
most that need to be done? At least,
You don't know
you got a short amount of time. You got a short amount of time. That's usually the case in churches when people are running late or something. And,
Okay. So, as it was stated, let's say that establish a RATE. Okay, I'm sure it's relevant. TIN.
TIA.
TINE.
There you go.
An engineer. You want to establish a routine. You want to get into a habit of, and that's very good. You want to get into a habit of knowing that you do things from step A to step Z, and make sure all of those on either your mental checklist or hopefully on your physical checklist have been checked off. But in establishing a routine, let's break that down a little bit further. What sort of things would be in your routine? Here's one. Make sure you've done your homework. And homework means you want to know, first off, going into this, you want to know the instrumentation involved.
Like, what do you mean instrumentation? How many instruments, or
What kind's gonna be
What kind?
used?
Yes.
What kind?
Yes,
Yeah,
everything,
exactly.
all of that, exactly. What is your instrumentation? I've got 2 guitars, I've got a bass, I've got drums, I've got a lead vocalist, I've got 3 backup singers, and, okay, that's the band. And then I've got a pastor that I'm gonna have to set up for, and I have an assistant pastor that's probably gonna wanna do some talking. Okay, great. So that's your instrumentation, right there. So you want to establish, you want to do some homework. I mean, this is before you get here. Do some homework. Establish what your instrumentation is. Establish also, with your instrumentation, your stage layout. Would everybody agree?
Like organized or who's where, like to make it not look out of place?
On a piece of paper, you want to mark out your stage here, okay?
All right.
And you're going to know that your lead vocalist is probably, hopefully, going to be over here. And you may, in some situations, your drums may be over here, okay, and your organ may be over here, and you've got your guitar over here and your bass right here. I mean, you could have a setup like that. And that's not.
So we should draw out a plan like that, just like you're looking on top of the whole stage right there?
Right.
All right.
So, I mean, I have seen stuff like this. Then what you want to do is, once you've established your stage layout, how it's going to be, and hopefully you've dealt with the band and you know how the band is. If it's a touring act, what you want to try to do, like when I mix Plank Eye, what you want to try to do is get a hold of their manager or their road manager, somebody who knows the group and how they set up. And they'll come up and they'll tell you now, drums and center bass to the right, guitar to the left, lead vocalist here. We have 2 backup vocalists, the organist sings, and bass guitar player sings, the guitar player sings, and we have a lead singer, and he's got a little pig nose amp. And so these are the kind of things you want to establish. Then, what you want to do is establish what microphones you currently have and what you may need to get your gig done. Okay? So once you've figured out your instrumentation and you've got your stage layout set up, then you want to do, you want to ask yourself, what mics do I have? Okay. You want to know, what mics do I have, and numbers. Okay? So in other words, do I have 5 SM58s? Sure, SM58s. Do I have, I have 5 SM58s. I have 3 SM57s. I got a Sennheiser MD421. I've got 5 Sennheiser 504s. Make your list. You're the sound person. You're responsible for this. So it's very important that you have a list of all the equipment that you have. Okay. Now, because this is an advanced class, I'm assuming that you all know why certain mics do certain things. If you don't, I'd be more than glad to cover that for you. If anybody has that question, we'll go through that. But there's reasons why you use certain mics on certain instruments. So once you have that determination done, then you want to start placing your mics on your layout. Now, I like to do this the night before. Certainly not 5 minutes before. So I know that I'm going to have 58s for the vocals. Okay, the bass is probably going to use an MD421, and the guitar probably an SM57.
No, when you say bass, are you saying
Bass
you're going to
guitar.
mic the amp?
If you're going to mic the amp, that's a good point. That's another determining factor you have to make. Are you going to mic your bass amp, or are you going to pull him direct? If you can pull him direct, if you can pull him direct, the better.
Yeah. Or are you going to go with the comp?
You're out of frame. Do it again.
And depending on how much SPL you're trying to put in the room, if it's really a loud band, the combination may work really well. Because this way, the bass player may really like the sound of his bass cabinet, but that doesn't give you a whole lot of control when you mic out a bass
And they
guitar.
really like having it behind them, it's like a security mic.
Right, exactly.
Or they could be using a lot of effects too that you want to pick up just enough of to still have a really clean bass sound.
Well, if you do your direct box right, on your bass cabinet, if you do your direct box right, okay, oftentimes they have a line out that comes right off the bass amplifiers, and you can DI that right to the board, and that's all post effect.
Now, I've heard that if you put that right into your board, you can really blow something up.
Of course you can. Only if you're pulling it off the wrong line.
Yeah.
If you come out on the back of, well, let's take bass cabinets because we're talking about that. On the back of bass amplifiers, you have, typically speaking, you have 2 speaker outputs.
Mm-hmm.
You typically have, if you have a really good bass amp, a preamp out. That is not the same as bass, as a direct box. Okay? And then you have a DI, a direct out. Okay? Typically you have those 4 inputs on any bass amplifier. Now, the speaker out, I mean, if this is a 500 watt bass head, man, you've got 500 watts coming out of these. If you take that to your board, you will fry your board. You will not only fry your board, you will weld your board. I guarantee you.
Because I was gonna do that once with the what was it, the bass? Yeah, I was gonna do that, and Mike said, "Don't do that." And I'm like, "Why?" And he explained to me, you know. I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll take your word for it."
Right.
You know?
You guys come out of the direct line?
No, well, let's get to that first. Let's finish off here. So on your speakers out, don't take your speakers out to the board.
So you're saying use one of those other kind of mics, those
Do not take
57.
preamp out. Do not take preamp out. Okay? And if that's all you have, man, if that's all you have, you don't have a DI out and you got preamp out, don't do it. It's a low-level power signal that will fry your board. You'll fry your preamp section. You won't weld your board like you would with 500 watts coming down the line, but you will fry your differential amplifier stage. So don't take your preamp out. And if you don't fry it, you keep it at a low level, it will always sound cruddy. It will always sound distorted on the preamp out. So if you have the DI, take the DI out. Because the DI, if this cat has got, you know, he's got a distortion unit. I don't know why, but this is his I've seen some weird stuff, bro. This is his guitar. That's not a very good guitar. Let's say he has a distortion unit. Actually, let's say he's got a compressor, then he has a distortion unit, and then he has chorus, okay? And then he goes into his amplifier. When you take the DI out, you're going to get that whole effect change, okay? So effectively, you really don't have to mic the cabin because you picked up all of those effects. Oftentimes, on the DI, if he doesn't have a DI out, then you're going to have to buy a little, or provide a little DI box, a direct box, okay? And typically where that goes is typically you put the DI box, you know, the guitar will plug into that, and then this goes back to the board, and then this here goes on through the chain. You can place that anywhere you want, really. So you could go right here, DI, plug into your DI, then this plugs into the amplifier, and this one goes off the board. You have 2 outputs. One goes to your amp, and one goes to your board, okay? And this will still get all of the effects. What you bypass on this is any equalization they do up here. If they do any EQ or any further processing, you bypass all of that. Then you may have to throw a microphone in front of the cabinet to pick that kind of stuff up. But if it's just EQ that they're affecting up here, you can do a much better job back at the board than they can. The reason is when you're mixing sound, unlike mixing a recording, okay? Mixing a recording is a whole different ballgame, okay? When you're mixing live sound, what you're doing is you're mixing the sound that's rolling off of the stage coupled with the sound that's coming through the speakers. So typically, people who listen to board recordings, recordings that come right off the mixing console go, boy, that sounds terrible. Well, yeah, but they go, but the concert sounded so good, you know? And it's true. I mean, it's so true because the mixing console is there just to try to blend the sound that's rolling off of the stage with the sound that's in the room, okay? So keep that in mind with all of this. All right, so let's finish this off real quick. Okay, so you want to place your mic layout. Then you want to do cable routing.
Length of cables, is that what you're talking about? Like,
No, how they're.
How are you going to route? I mean, you can either do this mentally or hopefully on paper. You know that this is, you know that back here is your soundboard, okay? And your soundboard is going to be 150 feet away.
all right.
Okay, so, and you've got enough snake to do that. So where do you want to place your snake? Typically, you want to keep, I'm a real stickler for this, man. You don't want cables all over the stage. You don't want that. Again, like I said, first off, you're liable. Some guy trips, falls, breaks their neck, man, you're liable for that.
So you're saying gaff them down?
Well, wait a minute, before we get to that, no, don't gaff them down, but before we get to that, also remember, that's your investment, man. That's 25, 50 bucks out of your pockets, and they're stepping, you know, sitting there dancing on that stuff, and it's breaking those fine wire connections, okay? So what you want to do is, yes, you do want to gaff them down, but what you also want to do is, if you have your snake set up over here,
and you know you're gonna route your snake back to your board like so, let's say that's your logical place for your snake, and you wanna make sure you've got at least 1 foot clearance all the way around. Okay? Make sure you put it in an area where there's at least 1 foot clear all the way around, because maybe you're gonna use, all that's gonna be filled up with cable. Okay? So that last thing you wanna do is have a drum kit over here, and then you want the snake right there with all these cables around there, because he's gonna step on them, and so you're gonna defeat your purpose. So make sure you got 1 foot all the way around your snake clear when you lay your snake down. Okay, then what you want to do is you want to make sure you route your cables away from the stage. You want to make sure you have plenty of cable to do this, okay? You've got to take all this into consideration.
So where are those circles right there? Those stands?
Yeah, these could be stands, these could be anything. They're just representing vocal mics is what they're doing.
Okay.
And the drums, you don't want, when you mic a drum kit, you don't want to have all kinds of cables draped in front of them, the drummer will kill you, okay? Some drummers don't care, but it really looks tacky. You can actually do some really nice stuff with cables. But anyway, you want to bring all those cables that the drums are going to require into a nice snake, keep them nice and neat. The same with any mics that are over here on the bass, route them, anything on the guitars, route them, and keep it nice and clear, away from the stage. Organs, if you got 2 mics on the organs, route it, okay?
You wouldn't run the mics in the front to the back somehow instead of running to the front of the stage?
That's up to you.
That's
I mean,
the same, yeah.
that depends on how
Depends
much
how they
cable
show.
you have. It really depends on how much cable you have. I like to run 50-footers on stage. That gives me plenty of cable, but I can reach way out here. And
See,
still run it
that's
right.
XLR cable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's my cable.
standard mic cable. Another thing you could do too, if you have the ability to do it, use sub-snakes.
Yep, sure.
Oh, yeah.
What a subsnake is a little bitty snake that,
So
Yeah,
you're saying like
6 or 8 channel.
like what we have here, these portals in the stage, those are sub snakes, is what you're saying?
yeah, could be,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
And they work great for drums. I mean, because, you bring up one snake,
Oh, yeah,
you got
okay.
one line that goes back to here, and then it fans out to 8 or 10, XLRs.
That plugs
It's
into
just
your
a
main
tiny
box.
little snake, 25, 50 feet, whatever.
Speaking
All right.
of drums, that electronic setup that they have in there, during their band things, it just didn't have the realism. Is that right there mixing it, or can that sound better? I'm not familiar with that setup at all. I was going, yeah.
That would be another one we'll talk about here. Right after.
Because we've always had trouble with drums. Doing clubs and stuff in live bands, you usually have enough volume, you can mic them and make it sound pretty good. But in church settings, man, the drums are just so overpowering.
If I had a cassette tape player here, I'd play this band that I just finished mixing in my studio. And what I did is use the same system that Bill has, but I had the drummer actually go ahead and record with live drums, and then when I did the mix down, I actually replaced them with fake drums. But you can't tell.
So in other words, you took the live drums and triggered it.
Exactly, which is what Bill was doing. Okay, well, we'll talk about that here in a minute. Real versus fake drums. We'll talk about those. Okay, so establish your cable routing. So what we said is we want to establish a routine. We want to get the instrumentation. We want to lay out the stage. We want to know how many mics we have. We want to place mics on a layout, and we want to do some cable routing. That's all upfront work. Okay, now what's the most important thing to sound check? Okay, so anything else in here, first off, that we want to talk about that we think is important in establishing a routine? I mean, yeah, we could go down and we could say
Habit. Habit.
Yeah, make sure it's a repeatable habit. Definitely make sure it's a repeatable habit. And that's why it's good to write this stuff down until you have it so ingrained in your brain. But make sure you have it out of habit. And also some of the things that you may want to keep in mind is just making sure you keep a good clean stage. I mean, that is so important here. Okay, well let's.
That'd be good to, like, once you have your setup, like for your church or whatever, to have that draw it out, and
It's like,
just for emergency, just in case something happens.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
somebody
saying?
else needs to come in and
Yeah.
mix.
yeah, because
These are the kind of things that separate the men from the boys. Mixing sound is an art. And I swear to God, friends, there is no wrong way to mix sound. Period. Nothing's wrong, man.
There's so many variables.
Yeah, well, but nothing's wrong. I mean, somebody will come up to you and go, well, you got the sound of that guitar all wrong. How do they know it's wrong, man? I mean, you designed it. You're the sound designer, right? So, or that bass sounds terrible. How do you know, man? Maybe that's the sound you're going for. Maybe they're right. There's no right and there's no wrong way. There are established principles. Okay, there There are established things, and there are things like mic selection or EQ settings or things like that that you use that help you put your colors on the canvas, if you will. But when it comes down to it, you guys are the artists. It's your job to make that sound however you want. You want to put a 57 on a mic, Kevin? Do it! Why? Because everybody says. But who says you can't put an AKG 414 condenser mic on a mic cabinet? Who says you can't? You don't, but who says you can't? Nobody. So do it, man. If you want to put a 414 on a mic cabinet, do it. You know, on a mic cabinet, do it.
I mean, if you don't have a not Shure, but Sennheiser 409, if you've got an EV RE20 on bass, throw it on.
Actually, an RE20 is very good. Yeah, exactly.
Or you can throw it on the kit.
There are established mics that you use that produce repeatable results. We'll put it that way. You know, 421s on kicks, RE20s on kicks, 57s on snares, 504s on toms, 58s for vocals, 57s for guitar mics, 421s for your bass, directs for your bass, condenser microphones for your pianos, boundary microphones for your pianos, boundary microphones for your kick drums. These are all established techniques that
Is that in here as far as the basics that you recommend?
No, not really. I don't got them, but it is in here.
Oh, you do have them?
It is in here.
Oh.
Another,
Where can you purchase them?
Talk to Bill.
yeah. Also, also books like that too.
There's a lot of books out.
Yeah, if you can get a hold of a magazine, I think it's called either Mix or EQ.
Both, either one. Well, EQ would give it better because EQ delivers better live reports than mixed
But
up.
I was thinking, you can get Mix magazine, and in one section they usually have a thing called the Mix bookshelf.
Oh, yeah, right.
They've got a lot of good stuff there on doing
Yeah.
sound for churches, doing live sound. They've got
What is it
videos. Mix bookshelf.
But I really think if you haven't developed an ear for what sounds good, then I mean you can try to mix, but you don't know really what you're looking for.
But how do you develop an ear?
Well, it's experience and practice.
Right.
Exactly. And
So-
that's right. I mean, the only way you're going to develop an ear for this stuff is to get out there and blow it up, man. You know? Normally you saw the cables around my neck this morning, right? Haha, very funny. Normally I usually wear a noose around my neck too. I couldn't find a rope the other day. Why? Because that is the sound man's necktie. You, in the eyes of the musician, in the eyes of the audience, are going to be hung. There's nothing you can do right, okay?
Yeah.
And for some reason, the sound man gets slammed so many times for so many things that totally are out of your control. The guitar's too loud. Well, you told the guy to turn it down, and you've got it completely zero on the board here, man.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, but they say, well, the sound sucked. Excuse my expression. But in reality, you had no control over that, so you get hung for it.
Yeah.
And so usually I wear a noose to say that this is the sound man's necktie, and that's so true. But keep in mind, though, if you do a lot of your homework up front, you establish a routine before you get to the gig, a lot of your problems are going to go away. They're just not going to surface. Also, like I said, make sure your cables are good. When I was talking about the wrapping up, if you ensure these basic fundamental principles, when you get to the gig, you know that you're going to have good sounding cables, good sounding microphones, and the chances of something going wrong are going to be minimized. Okay, I have never, ever worked on a gig where something went right 100%. The closest was when our band was up here last Saturday playing at Heavenly Grounds. We finally got a system down, thank you, Lord. We finally got a system down that we can actually roll the sound system in, basically plug it up and get going. But even at that, we had some problems. We had buzz that we just couldn't figure out. And we just couldn't figure it out, so I walked behind her and flipped the ground switch and it went away. We have a new sound guy, so sound man.
That's it.
That's what that was our problem. We were videotaping and just had a buzz in the recording. It was bad buzz. It was overpowering everything. And I couldn't figure it out. I came in during the week, tried to figure it out, and the next week before church, Kevin just he looks at it, he says, "Well, let me try this," and then he says, "You have a ground lift problem." He just put a ground lift in there. I'm like, man, we thought it was some knob that was turned too far.
You know, one of the things he mentioned here about about the mixed bookshelf. They have a series of discs called Reference, I think it's Ear Training. It's called Ear Training. And I think the whole set is $225, okay? Excellent investment. If you want to tune your ears, you want to train your ears to different frequencies, different compressions, just stuff about audio, it's an excellent, excellent resource, and I can't encourage it enough. Buy that if you want to learn how to distinct, like, have you ever worked with a sound engineer who goes, you got 1K feeding back? Well, how does he know it's 1K? I mean,
He's heard it enough.
He's heard it enough, exactly. His ears are trained to know that that is a fundamental frequency somewhere around 1K. That's basically what he's saying. When you're feeding back at 1K, basically he's saying somewhere around 1K, you've got a feedback problem. So you go up to your graphic equalizer and you can drop it. A good sound engineer's ears are trained to be able to know the difference between 7K, 1K, and 500 hertz. Or if they get a 60 hertz rumble on the stage when somebody's trotting across the stage, just going, you know, and they know how to do things like put foam rubber underneath your mic stands and things like that. Stupid little things that you would think are stupid, but really contribute to cleaning up the overall sound.
Another good thing too, when you're asking, well, what does something actually sound like? How do I learn that? Especially when it comes to mixing groups with voices, go out even before you get behind your board and listen to what they sound like as a group with what their blend is, then go back to your board and help get that blend out onto your house.
I've also found it easy to close my eyes when I'm mixing, you know, to see what the live mix sounds like coming through the house. That's helped, but I almost mix them better when they're performing instead of during practice, because they mess up more during practice, you know, and.
Well, especially in our church, I mean, we usually pretty much use somewhat the same worship team, so we've learned to know those voices.
Yeah, okay.
But if it's a song that I'm not familiar with, something that they're doing, what I'll usually do is, after we're done with sound check and they're still working on it, I'll go back and listen to their voices. So I can, that helps me learn the tune as well, so I know what to highlight out.
Okay.
When I need to, when they're actually performing it, if something actually needs to be highlighted on a certain part.
There's so many variables.
Okay, let's just finish off this. What things do we do on sound check, and we'll move on to the next page over real drums. Real quickly, things that you do. Now, typically, here's how I do sound check. I start off with drums first. Typically, I start with the kick drum, okay, and I make sure I get a good, solid kick drum sound. And at the same time, I start off with bass. So bass and kick drum. Now I try to balance the bass with the kick drum so that I have a good solid balance going there, okay, between the bass and the kick drum. Those are how I start off. Then I move on into the snare, okay, and nothing else playing, just the snare. Just sit there and tap it. And what I'm listening for when I'm doing this sound check is I'm listening for the equalization of it. What's it sound like in the room? How does it sound when you go with the PA system? What's its overall balance in the room? Then I move on to my toms. Tom 1, starting from the left, Tom 2 in the center, Tom 3 over to the right, and finally a floor tom. And then once I have that established, then I go into the hi-hat, okay? And again, we're just doing one-timers on these. Just again, trying to establish the same thing. I should have done that. Overheads. And hi-hat, and then I do the overheads, and then that's done. Then after I get done with the drums, that means the bass and the drums. Okay, then after I get done with the drums, and I've done that individually, then I usually tell the drummer to do some time. Okay, let's do some time. And you listen to the whole drum set at that point. Okay, you listen to the balance of snare versus kick versus toms, and hopefully the drummer will give you performance level. When you tell the drummer to do time, you tell him to do it at performance level, man. I mean, because adrenaline's everything. And once their adrenaline's up and running, they're hitting a little harder, they're hitting this a little harder, they're doing that, they're whacking the heck out of the snare and cymbals. You know, everything is just going crazy at performance level. That's what you're trying to go for, so that you can balance your mic inputs. You're trying to balance your inputs. You're trying to make sure nothing's peaking there, and you're trying to make sure that everything sounds good when you're doing the sound check. Then the next thing I move on to is guitars. And then also while he's doing time, I have the bass player play with him to make sure that I still have that relationship going, okay? And I may have to tweak the bass a little bit. Okay, so that's all done. The rhythm section's done. Now I bring in the guitars, do the same thing with guitars, have each guitar player play a little bit. I look at my lights, what I do on my mixing console at this point, what I'm looking for in this whole thing is I'm looking for the gain of the microphone to be set. And the way I set that is I crank the gain. First off, I bring the volume level up to 0 on your board, okay? Now, Mackie for some reason has given confusion to this. He says crank your gain all the way up until it peaks and then bring it back down. And so what sound people have taken, at least the last 7 sound people I talked to, they said, well, we read Greg Mackey's book and this is what he told us to do. And what Greg Mackey told us to do was crank the gain all the way up and just use the volume control. Wrong! That is wrong, okay? If you were interpreting it that way, that is wrong, man. You were setting yourself up for really bad sound. Greg never said that, okay? I went and checked it. Greg never said that. That's the way they interpreted it. What you do is, the reason why everybody, and Greg included, have put 0 on the board is that's what they call unity gain. Okay, and what unity gain means is that's where everything is running flat out. That's where it's at the optimum level of performance, okay? So what you do when you're doing the sound check is you have your volume set up to 0, okay?
You got your master as a...
You got everything at 0, okay, on the board. You got everything at 0. Now your house sound may be a little bit different, okay? You're actually, what's going out to the house, you actually don't really want that very loud. You know, not at first. You want that at a good comfortable level. So don't necessarily set that at 0. But everything else you want set at 0. Then what you do is you crank your preamp up, okay? And you crank that up until you've got a solid red peak, until it's just peaking at you, solid. Then you back it off about 3 dB to where it only peaks at transients. Peaking isn't bad. I mean, if you're getting an occasional peak like that, that's not bad. And you should probably see that on your kick and snare. You should probably, when the band is really grooving, you should probably see every once in a while your kick and snare lights going off. Okay? And that's okay to see these red LEDs go off. You're not really degrading the sound. You're running it where it's supposed to be. It's when they go on and stay on that you got a problem. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to bring that gain up, and then you want to back it off 3 or 4 dB until you just have a transient peak or no peak, depending on you.
And your single slot volume is at 0 still.
It's still at 0. Now, we haven't mixed sound yet, okay? All you're doing is you're trying to establish the gain between what the microphone is giving you and what the board is accepting. And when you're doing that, you're setting up a unity gain for what the microphone's output is, and you're bringing up the level of the board to accept that. That's all you're doing at this point. So the first thing really, I should have said all this ahead of time, because the first thing that you do before you actually do all this to your drums is you want to set these levels up. And you want to make sure your levels are set up. Then, once you have that done, then you want to establish the actual movement of your faders. That's where you actually start bringing them above 0 or below 0. Okay, now keep in mind when you use EQ, EQ is going to have an effect on that peaking too, because EQ is actually nothing more than a volume boost. Now, you got to keep that in mind. A lot of people don't think about that, but when you add EQ or you cut EQ, you're actually adding and cutting volume to your overall signal. So, okay, so once you have that done, then I do guitars, then any organs or anything else come after that, and then lastly, I do my boxes, my vocals on top of that. Now, and that's typically how I do my sound check. Again, I'm listening for balance, I'm setting some overall levels. The other thing that I do in a sound check is this. Does everybody know what a bus is?
Group?
Yep. Another name for that is groups. Exactly. Does anybody use them? Yeah.
All the time, as much as I can.
Here is a suggested way of doing your group. Let's say you're not going to run stereo. Let's say most of your gigs are going to be in mono, so let's just assume mono. Now on any group or bus strip, on a channel strip, okay, you'll have a pan knob, okay? And it's left and right, okay? And then you have these assigned switches, 1, 2, I think it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right. And so the 1 and 2 constitute left and right. Okay, I'm just going through some real basic stuff here. So this is on your input. Okay, so this is your channel input script. Now then, if you have your pan up and you have 1 and 2 depressed, when you get to your bus strip, okay, you've got bus 1, 2,
No, this would be 4 of them right now. 2, 3, 4. Now this is the way my console works. Other consoles work a little bit differently. Okay, this is my bus output strip. And then I've got a master output strip which goes to the house. So this is master out. Okay? Now, what happens is I have a left and right assign switch here on my console. And of course I have a pan knob in there somewhere. So what I always do is I always assign my buses to left and right. There's other switches on there, but right now this is the way I do it. So I always switch this to left and right. And so what happens is if I'm on pan and I have 1 and 2 down, then whatever signal is coming up over here, and you also have left and right that's also showing up here. Well, last thing you want to do is if you have 1 and 2 depressed, you don't want to have left and right depressed also. Okay, is that understandable? Okay.
Explain that again.
Okay, on your input strip, what you're going to do is you're going to bus something. What we're going to do is we're going to try to have a subgroup. Now, the whole reason we're having subgroup is so instead of having 10 controls over here to do something, we only have 1. Okay, and we can still use the 10 controls to do individual mixing, but overall volume is controlled by 1 knob. So you also have left and right. So the last thing you want to do is have 1 and 2 depressed and also left and right depressed. Because if you have left and right depressed at the same time you have 1 and 2 depressed, now you're getting 2 signals. You're taking this signal, you're multiplying it times 2, and you're applying it to the output to the amplifier. So now you got this really loud signal, and it sounds really out of whack.
Is that bad for your board?
This is fun.
Is that bad for your board to
No,
have
it's not
it?
bad for your board at all. No, it's bad for your sound, but it's not bad for your board.
Okay.
No, you're not going to do a doggone thing to your board, except you're going to make that sound twice as loud.
Okay.
Okay? And that's not the way to make your sound twice as loud, by the way. That's the wrong way. Not the wrong way. That's really not the appropriate way to make your sound twice as loud. Okay, so finishing this off. So what we do then is, what we try to do is we try to, as I just stated, in our actual session where we're doing our sound check, what we want to do is we want to assign, a lot of this should be done on homework, we want to assign certain groups of instruments to singular buses, so that, like I said, instead of having to go over here to 10 faders, you go to just a group of 2 or 3 or 4. So what I like to do is I like to assign kick, snare, tom 1, 2, floor, overhead, and bass guitar, believe it or not. I like to assign those all to subgroup 1. So in this case, what I would do is I depress subgroup 1 for all of those channels that this is coming into. I pan this sucker hard left, and all my drums then on my strip would be called rhythm section. Now, what that means is I can sit here individually, I can move my sound, I can actually set my sound up for the blend that I want at each channel input strip. And I can sit here, and this is also called my groove control, man. Because especially on the rhythm section, I can sit there and I can really control. Seriously, if I want a little bit more groove, I can sit here and ride this control and give a little bit more groove where I want. So this is called my groove control, and I bus all of these down to one group. Now I've got all of those channels down on one subfader. Then I take my guitars down to 2, and possibly organ down to 2. And so now this is called instruments. And then I take my lead vocal down to 3, okay, and my backup vocals down to 4. Why would I do that?
You're going to throw in a compressor on them?
Exactly. Exactly. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Your backgrounds might not be singing as hard as your lead, and if your lead is kicking in real heavy, it's also going to be compressing your backgrounds too much. You might not hear your backgrounds.
Everybody understand what he said? Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there. The reason why you want to do it is because your lead vocalist is usually a screamer of some sort, and so they're going to want a little bit. First, you have to understand why you want to use compression, okay? And once you understand that principle, you're going to want to understand that the lead vocalist is going to have a whole different compression ratio than what your background vocals are going to have. Now, typically, background vocals, I like to run them suckers about 7-to-1 with a -10 threshold. I mean, I really like to squeeze background vocals, because what that does is that allows me to make all of the background vocals sound like one vocalist,
okay? I mean, if I've got one girl that's singing a little bit too light, another guy that's really singing hard, I can actually compress it to 7-to-1 and make everybody's sound sort of equal in that respect. So he's right, he's absolutely right. You bring the lead box down to 1, and you bring the back box back down to another one. Now, hope and pray that you have done your homework, and this guy is going to do lead, and this guy is going to do lead, and this guy is going to do lead. You know, because that becomes a real nasty mess. So at that point, what you want to do is just be friendly with the band and say, look, hey Jim, you know, I know typically you sing backup vocals for the one song that you do lead. Do you mind walking over to Bill's mic over here and singing in that? Take the center stage. No, man, I don't want my mic. Well, if he really does, you may have to give him his own compressor and his own channel. You have to sort of weigh those things out. Typically, most people don't have a problem with taking the lead vocal center position to do that. Okay. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of things here. This is what you do when you want to do sound check. This is what you're looking for. You're looking for balance. You're looking for compression. You're looking for overall levels. You're looking for if anything is weird out there. You're also looking for shorted cables, man. You know, you want to make sure in the sound check that you've wrung out all of your shorted cables. Okay. Get rid of those suckers. Don't even keep them. You know, put some tape around them, mark them bad, and if they're one of these seal cables, throw it away. Man. Just give up the ghost and throw it away. Because there's nowhere you're going to tell in that line where that thing's shorting. There's no, I mean, it could be anywhere in that line that thing is shorting. You know, you can cut off the ends, and you may have gotten a problem by cutting off the ends and replacing them with new ends. Chances are it's broken somewhere else down there. You know, so throw them away.
I have an engineer that I was working with. You know how much of a hassle it can be trying to hold out a cable and hold the probes on that?
Yeah.
He made me a little box that's like this big.
Oh, little test box.
Yeah, and he set up 2 sets XLRs, 2 sets RCAs, quarters, temporary sleeve,
nice.
and it's an LCD readout. Man, you can throw the cable around, see if it cracks, pops, everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Breakout boxes like that are godsend. You know, you can buy them, but if you get a friend that can set you up one with a custom-made thing where you do little LED readouts, and those are great. I've got just a cheap little Whirlwind. Well, it's cheap. It costs like $45, but yeah, I got a little Whirlwind that gets me all that. You know.
The one I had, it was it gave like an audio tone like a normal home.
Right.
And I'd get in some place that would be too noisy and I couldn't see, so I asked him about it. He just set it up with LEDs.
Oh,
I can set it anywhere and then shake the cable or anything when they watch the.
Does everybody understand what he's talking about? It's called a cable tester. He had a friend build one for him. You can buy them. Something you might want to add to your. You really should add to your tool. You really should add to your field toolbox. It's called a cable checker. You can buy them anywhere, or if you've got an electrical engineering friend who can set you up one. They're pretty easy to set up, but they really are godsends in so much as, you know, they allow you to plug your cables in and then shake your cables around and see if you've got any problems anywhere in the cable. If you've got a good solid connection, the more you shake the cable around, the less problems you're going to have. They're called cable testers, and I really highly urge you to get one. Now, real versus fake drums. I didn't like the sound of Bill's drums when I heard them on the stage. Yeah. When you really get those suckers tuned right, they sound really cool. For some reason, he hasn't really, and I'm not apologizing for you, Bill, if you see this tape. He hasn't really spent the time, and he would agree with me here, to really tune those drums in. Whereas I, in my studio, have spent a judicious amount of time tuning those drums in. To where 98% of the time, you can't tell whether I'm playing real drums or I'm playing fake drums. And when I've had a chance to tune those drums in that you've heard, you can't tell that either. For some reason, that particular unit, not the manufacturer, that particular unit, he's had problems holding the memory. I don't know what it is. I don't know if his kids go in there. I don't know what happened to Bill. I don't know if his kids go in there and you know, erases the patches when he's sleeping. I just don't know. But he's had problems with that. Typically, the reason why you use drums like that on stage, and what we found, is it really keeps your overall volume down. The loudest instrument, well, unless you got a long-haired guitar player who does stacks and oracles, typically the loudest instrument